by John Kenneth Galbraith. Now he's a venerable economist who speaks with a straight tongue. You know, it's very rare to find an economist today who speaks with a straight tongue. Most of them have no clue what the hell economy is. Most economists today. Because they're all being trained and educated in a fallacy, which they believe to be true. And this is what he had to say. This fraud, that is the banking fraud that's going on, the mortgage fraud, all that stuff, is the diagnosis of an irreversible disease. The corruption and collapse of the rule of law in the financial sphere. And of course the collapse of the rule of law is not just taking place in the financial sphere. Definitely not. It's not, should we say, only there that the collapse of the rule of law is taking place. It is not just the collapse of the rule of law in the financial sphere is basically irreparable. It is not just that restoring trust takes a long time. It is that under the new technological order in this field, and anybody he's talking about here is this high-frequency trading that goes on, you know, this front-running. I mean, to get more detail on all that, you have to go to Zero Hedge, because they talk about it all the time, zerohedge.com. Front-running, you know, and all these high-speed computers, and they have these high-frequency trading algorithms. It's all done by machine. It is under the new technical order in this field, the restoration of trust cannot be done. The technologies are designed to sow and foster distrust, and that is the consequence of using them. The recent experience proves this, it seems to me, and therefore there can be no return to the way things were before. In other words, we are at the end of the illusion of a marketplace in the financial sphere. Alright then, now, so this was just some illustrations of what I call subhuman behavior by the bankers, you know, the criminal elite, the riff-raff hoodlums that are in the various agencies of the federal government, such as the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodities Futures Trading Commission and the FDA. I mean, it's just rampant. But I want to focus on one of those, since we were talking about drug use. Okay, now everybody knows that prohibition doesn't work. I mean, that was proven in the 20s. And so, alcohol was declared legal. And alcohol is legal today. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a vast quantity of alcohol consumed every year in the United States. But marijuana, I mean, of course, all drugs should be legalized. I mean, there's no question about it. However, if that was the case, there'd be no money in it, at least not as much money as is involved with making it illegal. So therefore, the Drug Enforcement Agency is the biggest promoter of drug use on the continent. Because the way it works is that by making these substances, marijuana, cocaine, heroin, and other illicit substances illegal, it makes for a black market. And on that black market, prices escalate dramatically over the course of time. You know, because I quoted to you that high-grade marijuana cost $430 an ounce. Now, I was a drug user myself before I was macrobiotic. In fact, for the first 6 months of my macrobiotic practice, I was a drug user. I used drugs, you know, from 1969 to 76. And I didn't want to stop using them after I started macrobiotics. I think it's a really interesting personal anecdote. And don't believe anecdotal evidence isn't scientific. It certainly is. Alright, I was a drug user. My main... And I used them all, you know. I mean, cocaine once. Didn't do anything. I probably was laced with cornstarch or something. Opium, I didn't do heroin because, you know, I didn't want to put a needle in my vein. That was kind of a little too much for me. But I ingested opium and amphetamines and uppers and downers and psilocybin and mescaline and LSD and cannabis. And my main drug use was cannabis resin, you know, the bricks, because that's mainly what we could get when I was a student. You know, this was when I was a student in England at the University of Liverpool. Then I graduated, and then I still continued to use when I was a veterinarian in large animal practice in England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales for that period of time, because I graduated in 71, late 71, and I didn't stop using drugs until 76. Now, of course, I was eating meat and potatoes and bacon and eggs and all that stuff. And so and of course I was consuming tons of sugar too. I mean, you know, I lost 75 pounds like in a period of 4 to 6 months when I changed my way of eating from meat and sugar to whole grains and vegetables. And as far as the drug use went, I didn't stop that because I enjoyed it. I really did. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't anything that was interfering with my productive life. I mean, I could continue to work as a veterinarian, and I mean, I got my degree and so forth and so on. So it wasn't a matter of it being counterproductive. It was just something I liked to use on a regular basis whenever I could get it, which was pretty frequent, and I was pretty much using it a lot, a great deal, you know, from morning to night, most of the time. And then when I started macrobiotic, in fact, it's interesting, the guy and his wife who introduced me to macrobiotics, Franz and Majwa Shelkin, and if they happen to be listening to this, thank you very much. You are my eternal friends for introducing me to macrobiotic. Francois one day told me, you know, Cora, if you continue to use marijuana and you start macrobiotic practice, you will die. You will become unconscious and you won't come back. You know, I kind of laughed it off when he told me that, because this was before I had actually started macrobiotic. And anyway, let's fast forward to 1976, and I'd also read an article by George Osawa, who I consider to be the great modern teacher and rediscoverer of macrobiotic principles. He wrote a pamphlet about drug use, and he finished it up by saying, please get off drugs as soon as you possibly can. And I said, no way, George, there's no way. I'm not going to get off drugs. So I had no intention of getting off drugs, because I said I enjoyed them. It was one of my great, shall we say, pastimes, you know. Anyway, so one day, this was in June of 1976, I was doing my usual after I'd gotten home from work and had the rest of the night off, and I put on a pot of water to make a cup of tea and get some, well, I was macrobiotic at that point, so I would have probably corn muffins or some, you know, good quality pastry that I'd made, and I rolled a joint. And I remember it well, because the sun was going down, and I put my favorite record, because that was the way I like to enjoy it. I put on my favorite music of the time and light up and really enjoy the music. Well, on this particular occasion, I lit up, and the next thing I know, it's dark, and the record is clicking. Click, 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 click. And I haven't heard one single note of music. So I looked around and I said, forget it. Because I went totally unconscious. I was probably fortunate that I came to, based on what Francois has said. And I said, forget it. What's the point of smoking this stuff if I can't be awake to enjoy it? So I quit. Right then and there, cold turkey. And I had no ab reactions whatsoever. I mean, I had no withdrawal symptoms. And that was the last time, well, not truly. It's pretty funny, because I was well known in my circle in those days as a drug aficionado, a connoisseur of cannabis, different kinds of cannabis. Because we got it from Morocco and Nepal and Afghanistan and South Africa. In fact, some of my good close friends became big dealers. I mean, big time. Made a ton of money. And and of course they got caught and they got put in jail. But they didn't care, because they spent 2 years in jail, got out, and they still had their money. But fortunately, I never got caught. So I never have it on my record. I don't have a police record of my time in the United Kingdom. But anyway, I did smoke again later, because everybody was kind of shocked that I was stopped using drugs. And one of the big things that we had in my circle of friends was football, soccer. And in 1978, the World Cup final took place, and everybody came from miles around to my house to watch the World Cup final. And they brought a ton of drugs. I mean, I've never seen so many drugs in my life. All kinds. So, of course, what am I going to do? It wouldn't have made any difference if I had not smoked, because there was so much smoke in the air, I would have been taking it in anyway. But the real last time I smoked, shall we say as a choice, a personal choice, was 1976. Now, so I know that these substances are not necessarily self-destructive. The Drug Enforcement Agency is actually a totally impotent agency if it is thought that the Drug Enforcement Agency is to curtail drug use, because it hasn't done that. But that's not what its purpose is. After all, it has a $20 billion budget every year, and they don't want to lose that, right? Because they're all skimming off the top, as I said, organized crime syndicates and every bureaucracy of the federal government. And there's definitely in the DEA, there's no doubt about that. And of course, who owns all the land in the United States, which produces the largest cash crop in the United States? It doesn't take much to figure that one out. So there's vast amounts of profit to be made. And of course, from a socio-political standpoint, it's very convenient to have drugs on the black market, because it means that the drug trade is done through, people who are, should we say, disenfranchised. And of course we have gangs as a result, who trade in this stuff, cocaine and